Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So, the story that I say about the Jackson 5, because what you're going to hear right here when I start playing here, you're going to hear Snoop Dogg. He's going to refer to Joseph Jackson. He's going to say, I think of him as like a football dad. It's like what we're going to refer to in the music business, or like people that are like actors' kids, they're known as stage fathers, okay? So what Snoop Dogg here is he's calling Joseph Jackson basically as a name that we're more familiar with, would be a stage father. But he's calling him like a football dad, which would be also the same exact kind of thing, but it's like a dad who's trying to get their kids into sports, where like a stage father would be trying to get their kids into music or into the movies, stuff like that, entertainment type of stuff, right? So Snoop Dogg's going to label Joseph Jackson as a football dad, and this is the whole thing about what I'm saying is that that's wrong, and it proves that my story's right, because the understanding that Joseph Jackson is a stage father, what happens is that means he would have been training all of his children from the very beginning. The idea of a stage father is that you look at your talent, you look at your kid, and you see greatness and talent where there is none. Whether if there's talent there or not, doesn't matter. When you're that type of person, you look at your kid and you see talent. You see greatness. And you say, I'm going to take you all the way. And you train them and you work them hard. Like, because that's the understanding of how we have Joe Jackson training the kids. You got to dance. You got to hit your marks, or I'll beat you and I'll whip you. We got to make it. We're going all the way to Motown, right? So that's the story about what they tell us. But if Joe Jackson was that person, he would have been training all of his children. You know, from the very beginnings, you would have had Reby and Jackie. There would be a band with them. The oldest kids, at first, they would have their first bands, but that's not where it starts. And so this is the thing about what proves my story, that the Jacksons don't start to develop as a musical band in the household, in that actual household. Joseph doesn't start to form the kids into a band until Michael's born. And that's the other thing, too, that proves my story. It's not when Michael shows the talent. It's when Michael's born, because it's when Michael's born that Joseph got the connection with Berry Gordy and Motown. Because Joseph and Berry Gordy have known each other for a long time, and Joseph Jackson knows that Berry Gordy already has a established career in the music industry, even before Motown's officially established, right? Berry Gordy's been a songwriter. Joe Jackson knows him. He knows he's serious. And when Berry Gordy is saying, I need you to take this kid, for whatever reasons, he would know it had to be with the development. That's one of the things about, too, is like, I absolutely do not think that Joseph Jackson knew that Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross were the actual parents. I don't know, he might have met Diana when they gave the babies. Like, that's the things I don't actually know. But Smokey, there's no reason for Berry Gordy to inform Joseph Jackson that Smokey Robinson was the father. There was no reason for that, right? But if Barry's just like saying, oh, this is a friend of mine's, got to get rid of this kid, something like that, Joseph would be smart enough to understand that maybe the people have musical talent, that maybe these people are related to Berry Gordy in a music type of business kind of thing. There's stuff about that is like wondering, is like, now, see, Joseph Jackson knows he got the kid. It's from Berry Gordy is who he's thinking. That's what he thinks. And that's why at that time, Joseph Jackson, the real story, because this is the other story about when I show you this right here, when Snoop Dogg says that Joseph Jackson's a football dad, or a stage father would be another name for it, it's wrong. And this proves that my story's right, because that's wrong. And when you see that that's wrong, and then you understand my story, and you understand that that part's wrong, that the people that all think that Joseph Jackson is like this football dad, a stage father, you understand that my story proves that that's wrong. Because what happens in the real world, the moment when Michael Jackson is born and given to the Jacksons household, Joseph Jackson at that time still is not training his children. He still is not training his children. And this is why, if Joseph Jackson was a stage father, at that time he would have built the band and started taking the kids on the road, because he would have already been developing that. My story says that no, it's when Michael came into the house because he was given to them from from Berry Gordy. That's when the whole development where Joe Jackson starts saying, oh, I'm going to start building something musically. But he doesn't build the kids because he's never been doing that. He was never a stage father. He never was doing that. What Joe Jackson did at the time when Michael's born, Joe Jackson reforms his musical group. Because Joe Jackson has some musical talent as a guitar player. His kids don't have any talent. He hasn't been training them. He doesn't see any talent in them. None of them can really sing. They're not talented. To train them to play the guitar, well, then he would have to train them. And that means that would take time and effort, of which he's not willing to do, because he spends his all day working his ass off at the steel mill. And he's not going to come home and train his kids on the guitar because he thinks that's pipe dreams. He understands that's not something that's going to happen. He's like, you guys got to go to school. Just like all the real parents tell them. When the parents fail, what they tell the kids is you got to go to school and you got to work hard. You got to start learning how to do this. You got to learn to do that. That's what Joe Jackson was training his kids to do. That's what was occurring. But when Michael comes into the house, for some reason, Joe Jackson now stops working at the steel mill. This is the official story. He stops working at the steel mill, and Joseph reforms his band, the Falcons. Joseph's trying to make it because he's not training his kids. He's never been training his kids. He's not that kind of a father. Joseph starts to reform his band, the Falcons, because Joseph has the connection to Berry Gordy, and Joseph's trusting himself. This is the man of who Joseph Jackson is. This is the actual things that are occurring. So, Joe Jackson then is not given a contract by Berry Gordy because his band's not good enough. So then what happens to Joe Jackson? He fails again. And now he's got a direct connection and he fails again. Now, right after that occurs, this is where he starts to train his children. And you'll hear it right here. Listen when Jermaine Jackson says, when they start the band, that Michael's only like 2 years old. Because that's exactly what happened. Joe Jackson at first, when Michael's born, Joe Jackson starts to do it with the Falcons. It does not work. So then when the Falcons fail, Joe Jackson starts to train his kids to play the guitar. So when he tells you the story here about Tito playing the guitar, now listen to the context of my story. Joe had just been in the band, the Falcons. He had just been trying to make it again. We don't even know if Joseph's working at the steel mill, because what we know is that he left his job at the steel mill, and then when Michael's 5 years old, he's got a new van full of instruments, and they're hitting the road. Where does all this money come from? What has occurred during that period of time when Michael has been born up until the time when they're 5 years old and they start hitting the road and stuff? What's occurred and developed in that household to set those things in motion? So, my story says that Joseph never was training his children, because this is what Jermaine's gonna reaffirm here too, is this is what I've been telling you, that they never were doing the band before Michael was born. It's only after Michael's born that it starts. And that starts because, and remember, when Michael's born, they don't know he's got talent. They don't know that he's gonna be the great Michael Jackson, not when he's born. But the reason the stuff is set in motion at the time that he's born, because that's the connection that he gets back to Berry Gordy and the Motown. That's why it shows you in the real life, that shows that my story's true. Because at the time when Michael's born, it sets in motion Joseph Jackson on this path back to Motown. And it's all about Motown. It's all about Motown. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to get back to Motown from the time when Michael Jackson's born. Michael doesn't have any talent at the time. He's not building a band with his kids. None of this stuff is happening. But for some reason, when Michael's born, Joseph quits his job at the steel mill, starts to reform his band, the Falcons, and he fails. So then he starts to train his kids. Now, if he's training Tito to play the guitar and stuff, right? And then during the day he has to go, he's going out, he's doing all this stuff when he's not at home. And he's training Tito on the guitar. So what Joe, being the person he is, because that's Joseph's guitar. He's still thinking he's going to make it with the Falcons. He's a guitar player. He has to go play. He needs his guitar. So he's not like telling Tito, you could just play my guitar anytime you want. But in the reality of that situation, now Joseph has a reason to take time to start training Tito to play the guitar. He wasn't doing that before. And it's documented. He was not doing that before. But my story says that now that Michael has come in the house, Joseph has this connection to Motown. That's why now Joseph is going to start training Tito. But Tito would not be able to play that guitar without Joseph being present. That's the simple deal. Joseph, being the guy he is, he's training Tito. So he would tell Tito straight out, and you're going to hear this, you're going to hear it in the lie of what Jermaine tells. You're going to hear my truth layered underneath that lie. The real truth would be that Joseph starts to train after Joseph doesn't make it with his band, right? Then he starts looking at his kids. Michael's still too young at this time, so he's still not looking at Michael whatsoever. And he does what he can do. He's a guitar player, so what does he do? Because think about, this is my story. He starts to train Tito, okay? But they say Tito's secretly playing the guitar and secretly breaks the string that Joseph is not even aware of this occurring. That cannot be happening. In that small house, you're going to tell me Tito is just, he's a kid. He's not an adult. I mean, who's going to respect the kid to pick up Joseph's guitar and start playing it? I mean, is he a guitar player? Does he know what he's doing? More like in reality, everybody would just look at that like some kid with a toy going bang, 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 bang. And we all know what happens with kids and toys. It's broken in a day or two. Okay? There's no damn way in hell that those adults would allow some stupid kid to be going bang, bang, bang on Joseph's guitar, which inevitably leads to the guitar string being broken. That could not have occurred. But what could have occurred is after Joseph is turned down by Motown, Joseph starts to train Tito. And he's telling Tito, here, I'm training you how. So this is how Tito's actually learning how to play the guitar. Tito's not just going bang, bang, banging on the guitar. He's actually learning how to play the guitar because now Joseph is actually training him. That's what takes time and effort. But what sets in motion for Joseph to put the time and effort in to start training his kids? It's Michael being born. Not that Michael has shown talent. He has not shown any talent. Joseph's not a stage father like what Snoop Dogg's going to say because he had never been doing this before Michael came into the house, which proves my story that everything is set in motion at the time of which Michael's brought into the house. It has nothing to do with anything else except that moment. And Michael obviously has no talent, showing no talent at that moment, so there's no reason to say that Joseph would have started to build all this stuff off of the recognition that Michael has all this great talent and stuff. That's not what it's just the fact that he was in the house because he was given to them from Berry Gordy. That's his talent. That's what Joseph is seeing. That's what Joseph is setting in motion because he sees what Michael's talent is he's got a connection to Berry Gordy. That's real. Michael doesn't need to have all this other talent. The connection to Berry Gordy is enough for Joseph then to start looking at his children. First to look at himself when he didn't make it. Now he's looking at his children. He's got this I did a stage father mentality. Saying, I'm going to train you. We're going to go all the way. Yeah, because he's got a direct connection back to Motown. That's how it works. That's the real world. And the facts of the case show that when you look at the timeline of the events that are occurring at the times of what I'm saying, you'll see that the story of the Jacksons, what people think, is not happening. It's not happening until the moment of Michael being born, which Michael has no talent at that time. So why does it start to develop exactly at that time? Exactly because my story proves everything. So now, let's go ahead and listen to this here real quick. Let's go and listen to this.
Look at him as like a football father.
Yeah.
Someone who's coached their son in football, and their son finally made it to the NFL, and you see this great NFL player become this great athlete, and you say, well, the father was the backbone to it all. It's just so different because of the time that he was doing it in. It was the time, the things that y'all was going through. We still was going through segregation and going through all of that when y'all was creating this move right here.
Well, I'll tell you, Snoop, but it has been something you never forget where you come from. Do you know when we were starting out, Michael wasn't in the group. Michael and Marlon were
They were too young.
Running around too young. So Tito, Jackie, and I thought we were the Isley Brothers. We were singing Isley Brothers songs and Motown songs.
It's your thing.
Yeah.
All that.
But see, Tito was sneaking in the closet playing my father's guitar, and he broke the string. And
okay, so just listen. So you heard Snoop Dogg all calling Joseph this great stage father. He's calling him football dad type of thing. Then right there, Jermaine said, when we started the group, Michael wasn't in the group because he was too young, but he's born. He's alive. So right there, that documents to you that the group doesn't start until after Michael's born. Because right there, he just said, when we started the group, Michael, because he's trying to act like all cool, like that they're the big part of what develops the Jackson 5, that he's trying to give himself credit, right? Because he's trying to say, we started the group even before Michael was just a kid. But Michael didn't need to show any talent because Michael's already born with the talent that his real parents are Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson, and he was given to Joseph from Berry Gordy. Michael was born with the talent. Michael's the one, right? So Jermaine's trying to act like Michael's not the one. He's trying to act like Michael's not who he is. You know, this is the stupid, dirty stuff they do in the Jackson family and stuff, right? And so he tells you that Michael's like they're too young, you know. You see, they're too young. They weren't in the band and stuff because they were too young and stuff, right? Exactly. And so what happened? So Joseph can't train the younger kids to play the guitar. He's not even looking at the young kids. He has no interest in the young kids. He's not even thinking about training them to dance and stuff. He's not even looking at them. He's looking at the older kids, and he's going to start teaching them how to play music instruments, because Jermaine plays the bass. Tito plays guitar. Jermaine plays bass. So and that's where Joseph is starting to train him, because you can see that this is the formation of Joseph's thoughts in his head. He's like, well, what can I train my kids to do? Because Joseph's not a great singer. He's not teaching these kids how to sing, because they're not really singers. They dance, they do their dance moves, but they're not really singers. What they're actually doing, he's training them to be is guitar players. And so since he's training Tito, now he starts to train Tito. And now Tito, if Joseph's actually, think about the reality, like think about the story they'd say that, Tito just secretly starts playing Joe's guitar. Bullshit. In that small house, there's no way possibly with those poor people that's Joseph's guitar. That would have been his pride and joy, his instrument. There's no way possible that Tito would have ever, and Catherine would have definitely, as soon as she saw Tito playing the guitar, Catherine would have said, put that away right now. You don't touch that. Okay? Unless Joseph's training him. And unless there's some form of an idea that there's some reason that it's okay. Unless there's some reason that it's acceptable, then it's not acceptable. That's all there is to it. So you people just have to look at the real world. Stop looking at what they tell you and look at the real world of what would really be happening in that situation. Could Tito Jackson have been playing that guitar without any form of permission from his father occurring with Catherine in the house? And you're going to tell me she's going to be more lenient to let this kid play the guitar who's like, I'm telling you, you look at a kid, they're like banging on the toys and it's broken a day. Every parent knows that. And you're going to tell me she's going to allow that stupid kid to go playing on Joseph's guitar? The guitar that he uses for his band, the Falcons? Are you crazy? It's impossible. But if Joseph is actually starting to train Tito now, and Tito's starting to learn how to play the guitar, Catherine's actually hearing Tito actually learn, and now Tito's like got this inner passion, this desire to, I want to play the guitar. And now Catherine has seen Joseph training Tito. She has seen Tito actually learning how to play the guitar. Under that circumstances, Tito would sneak in there and play the guitar and possibly break a guitar string. And that's how that could occur. But under the situation of what they're saying, it never could occur. It could only occur in the situation of the story of what I'm saying.
And see, my father would say, I don't want y'all touching my guitar when I go to work. Don't touch my guitar. And so Tito would sneak it out the closet, and my mother would know it. And she would say, baby, your father's coming back.
Hear it and put it back up.
Hear it and put it back.
Okay, so that's it too. Okay, so while I'm at work. Okay, well, the kids are at school all day too, right? So you're talking about a short period of time from when the kids are at home, to when Joseph's not around, to where he could be playing the guitar and he's gonna sneak in there and play that guitar. Hell no. In that house, as soon as you would have heard bing, 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 something on the guitar, Catherine would have ran in there and stopped him instantly. But Jermaine's acting like she's allowing it to kind of happen. And it's like the only reason she's allowing it because she's seen Joseph training him. And she thinks that that's a form of why it can be acceptable.
One day he broke a string, and that was it, boy. So my father threw the guitar to him, like I said. First he said, who broke my string on my guitar? We all got afraid, because he was those kind of fathers. He can look at you and then
that's enough to look at.
Yeah. So
that's how my mom used to He had a cold look.
Because he was a boxer. And right there, they all knew it. He was that kind of father. He could look at you. Oh, but Tito's just going to start playing the guitar, right? Tito doesn't know how to play the guitar. And that's the one thing. The one thing of Joseph Jackson that's his possession. Like, because that house, it's like he works and this is how it is for a man, right? You work, you get your paycheck, you give it to the wife, it's gone. So you work, you got nothing, right? You work. All you hope for is to get some hot meal in the morning, a hot meal when you get home, and some hot booty before you go to bed, right? And that's it. That's all, man. That's all you're asking for at that point. When you work, that's it. Okay, I'll give you something to eat. I'll give me a meal when I work. I'll give me a will. They let me get a meal. That's it. A few hot things a day, and that's all you can. Hot shower, and that's it. That's all you can. That's it. You're not expecting anything in life. That's your whole world and stuff, right? So that's Joe Jackson's whole world. But for some reason, Tito's gonna pick up that guy's guitar. That guitar. That would be his connection to his music history, his ideas of in his head, his pipe dreams of getting out of the ghetto and having fame and fortune, everything. And Catherine would damn well sure know it. There's no way in hell she would ever let Tito play that guitar. Not that guitar. Now, like I'm saying, if there was a few guitars in the house, but that's not the story that they're telling. It's one guitar. It's Joseph's actual guitar. No way would anybody pick up that guitar. Like they just said, like you said, Joseph would just look at you. Do you think that those kids had the guts to start playing Joseph's guitar? The one thing that you couldn't touch, and then they're going to start playing it, and then he's going to say here how Catherine was kind of allowing it to happen. You think Catherine is going to allow with the kids, if the kids are not being trained by Joe, that she's going to allow that to occur? Hell no! She would have got her ass beat.
Yeah. So Tito said, I was playing it, and he was crying at the same time. So my father said, well, show me what you know how to play. So Tito started playing, and we started singing this Motown stuff, man, making harmony. From that point on...
See, Motown, exactly like, why do they start playing... And he doesn't say, we start playing this miracle stuff, okay? We start playing this temptation stuff. They don't say it that way. That's what I'm saying. When you listen to the words of what he's saying, you actually hear the lie and you hear the truth of my story layered under, because he's covering up my story and he's telling it, but he can't cover everything up. And that's why when I listen to this stuff, I constantly am just finding the evidence. I go, look, I find it. That's how it is. But so now, what group does he say right? And now look they're from Gary, Indiana. Chess Records is right there. Chess Records is already established, and Joe Jackson has been a musical performer playing with musicians on the Chess label in Chicago. That's right there in Chicago. There's other record labels that are right there in Chicago, like the VJ Records. So there's the VJ and the Chess Records, right? Who Joseph Jackson has direct connections with both of those labels. People that he's played with. He's directly connected with those labels. But when he starts saying we start playing something, like I said, he doesn't emphasize temptations or the miracles. He emphasizes Motown. We start playing this Motown stuff. It's because that was the whole thing. It's that Berry Gordy's Motown. See, he's not talking about... Joe Jackson, when he starts to telling the kids we're going to Motown, he's not saying we're going to go back and we got a connection to Michael Jackson's dad, Smokey Robinson, with the miracles. He's not talking about the miracles. He's not talking about Diana Ross's stuff. He's talking about Motown. This is what he keeps telling the kids. We're going to Motown because he's got a connection to Berry Gordy. That's Motown. That's how all this stuff happens. That's what they're talking about. It's constantly layered within the conversation of what they're saying, because what they're saying is a lie, and it's easily to expose that it's a lie because everything of what they're telling you is wrong. If Joseph Jackson was really a stage father, the band would have already been developed with the older kids. It wouldn't be Tito and Jermaine. It would have been Jackie. But Jackie doesn't play an instrument. That's the thing. Don't you think that, and that's the thing too, where Michael comes up with the name Michael Joe. If the name Joe was of any importance to Joseph Jackson to have put it into the name of his children, why don't any of the other children have Joseph Jackson Jr.? Why aren't they named like that? Why isn't Joseph's name in any of the names? But no, it magically appears on Michael, the kid that I'm saying there's a problem with him, and then how are you trying to cover up the scam? Well, you got to make his name extra connected to the Jacksons. Well, so they name him Michael Joseph Jackson. Perfectly fits the scenario of the context of my story. How does that happen when Joseph's name is never placed in any other kids before that? How come every single thing happens perfectly when you understand the context of the story of I'm saying it perfectly fits the real story, not their story? You listen to their story and you start saying, that doesn't make sense actually. What you're saying here doesn't make sense. Because if Joseph was a stage father, he would have been training the children older than that. He would have been training them and thinking they're the greatest and all this stuff, but that's not what he was doing. And it shows all the stuff too. Like when he was saying that we started the band, it shows you, and when you know the real story is that Joseph, when he first starts working when Michael comes into the house, that Joseph starts to reform his band, the Falcons. That's a super important fact that people, you need to understand. That when Michael comes into the house, Joseph doesn't start training his children at that time because they don't got any talent. He doesn't trust any of them. They don't got connections to Motown, but he trusts himself. Joe Jackson, he's a guitar player. He's got a connection to Motown. So what does Joe Jackson do, and being the mentality of the guy Joe Jackson is? He builds a band himself, the Falcons, and tries to do it. That's what happened. But that's part where he fails. That's why he's then so hard on the kids, where he's pushing them because he's failed. So he knows what it's going to take to get to Motown. Even with the connection, he's now still stealing. Like, shoot, I've got a connection now. I still failed. You know, that's why you hear all the hardness of what he is. And that's why when Michael shows the talent, Joseph was super hard on him because he's like, there's no way we're failing now. We're going back there. And in a short period of time, where was Michael? Right back to Motown. How did he end up right back to Motown in that short period of time? Without the connections of what I'm saying being there. It happened. How does Joe know to build that band? As soon as Michael shows talent at 5 years old, we're going on the road. Joseph Jackson, the stage father, he already would have been touring with his kids if that guy is the real guy. But that's not what Joe Jackson was doing. Joe Jackson was working at the steel mill, busting his ass all day. He wasn't coming home training his kids to do shit. Except, help me work on the house. I got to do work around the house. You got to help me with this, help me with that. Yeah, he was training them with that stuff. But he sure as hell wasn't training them how to be musicians and stuff. Not until Michael comes into the house, which Michael has not shown any natural gifted ability of music ability. So why at that moment in life is everything set in motion? Only because Michael was given to Joseph. That's the connection of what happened. Without that happening, none of the Jacksons or nobody, we never would have heard of them without Michael being given to them. Joe would have been working at the steel mill. None of the Jacksons ever would have been a Jackson 5. That never would have happened. The thing that sets the whole thing is that Michael's given to them and is proven, documented from every single bit of facts that they tell. The whole story is backed up and proven that they never were doing anything until Michael was given to them. Everything about from the time that when Michael's given to them, Joseph has it set in his head that he's going to Motown. Why is he so desirable, has it set on going to Motown? When he's living right there underneath Chicago, he'd be thinking we're going to Chess Records. We're going to Chicago. Why is he going over to Detroit to Motown? Because that's where Berry Gordy's at. That's who gave him the kid. That's the reason for all these things occurring. The reason for Michael's great talent is because his real parents are Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. The fans are pathetic. They just want to live in the fairy tale and let these motherfuckers lie to them over and over and over again. And they claim fucking Michael Jackson's talent as their own. They steal from him just like all you goddamn fans who are fake loser motherfuckers. You got no talent in the real world, so you come into YouTube and steal from somebody who does have talent, Michael Jackson, and that's all you do. You don't defend him, you don't fucking do anything, you're not real fans, just like the fucking Jacksons are not real family. You're all fake, and I'm gonna fucking make sure that you fucking know it.